In this video, we're going to talk about quick search. Sprinklr's quick search is a tool to quickly search and analyze billions of conversations on social media and the web. Quick search is the ideal tool for quickly and briefly researching a topic. So it's very simple and it's not going to consume any listening mentions. So you can apply a quick search, and with it, you're going to be able to see reports like this one across many areas like reach, sentiment, demographics, audience. You'll be able to modify the search, apply filters, and make sure that you reach something that's really on topic and relevant to you. You're going to be able to drill down into results. So we're going to look at how to do that today. And you're going to be able to see the content and see any top performing posts on your search. However, you also need to keep in mind that quick search is not the ideal tool for long-term monitoring. You'll see that it has a few limitations, and its simplicity is also another limitation, right? So a couple of things to keep in mind with quick search is that this search that you're going to execute here is compatible with Boolean operators and with a good number of Boolean operators, but not the entire catalog that Sprinklr offers. Listening topics will have more operators. Another limitation is that quick search is not based on an active running search. It's based on the Sprinklr database. So that means that even though this database is really broad and has a high volume of mentions, you will not have the full library that you would have when you create listening topics. So again, this is great for quickly searching for something and being able to get results instantly. It is not the tool for long-term, detailed brand monitoring and more in-depth listening. All of that will be based on the other tools of the listening structure. So let's start working with quick search. First of all, how to open quick search. It's going to be very easy. Just open a new tab. And in the Launchpad, make sure you are in Sprinklr Insights right here. And then in the first column, you'll see quick search as the first item under this Explorer. So here's where you're going to be searching for something. You're going to start by entering some keywords or multiple keywords in a Boolean search with operators. Let's start with a simple keyword. So that's going to be, I'm going to search for the word solstice. I like this word, and it was somewhat recently, the summer solstice. So let's see what people are saying about this. This could be your brand name or any topic that you're interested in, like is my example. And as you see, when you enter your first keyword, you will have some suggestions of operators that you could apply to continue refining this search. But I'm going to start with a just search and seeing something populate my dashboard. All right, so this is the quick search dashboard. It will always look the exact same. It's going to look exactly the same with the same 5 tabs and the same visualizations. However, the data that you will see on this dashboard will be different depending on what you're searching. Next to your query, which you can see at the top, you'll see the time range. Now, by default, this is going to show you the last 24 hours, if I recall correctly. Now, it's defaulted to my last searched time range. But by default, you'll see the last 24 hours. You can modify this, and you can go and select, like I had the last 30 days, or you could say last month, which will be an entire month in the calendar, or just manually go and say these dates. Anything that you would like. There are a lot of long time ranges here. I would say caution with applying very broad time ranges like lifetime or full years, because that will really slow down this quick search. And you could get an alert that you'll have reached some limits that are not able to visualize everything. So within reason, we're going to look at the last 30 days for this example. So what are we going to see here? We will find in here, these are the 5 tabs of this report: summary, content, sentiment, demographics, and audience. Let's see what each of them is going to show us. So in summary, we're going to get a summary, a little bit of everything in one page. So we have a total number of mentions, the reach of the topic. We're going to have some information on sentiment, so how many positive and negative mentions. Of course, in the sentiment tab, we'll get more details on this. Here we simply have one widget. Here we can see the volume widget, where we can see that there was a peak of volume on Saturday, June 21st. That is not surprising because that was the date of the solstice. So that's what I was expecting. Now, you scroll down a bit more, you'll see there's a breakdown of the different themes of discussions that have been identified. So we have sun, light, winter solstice, the dates, linking biome, okay, and then subtopics that were identified as well. You can see this visualization on different content types. So we can see that most of the posts were photos, videos right after it, then links, carousels, etc. Down here, we can see the social channels that have the highest mention. So X is the leading one in this case, and the rest of them appearing in order of volume. And on the right, which are the most important domains. So you can see CNN and other sites. The rest of the tabs are going to be on a specific area of this. So for example, content will show us the actual content. On this widget here on the left-hand side, you will see posts, social posts that have been more recent. So you can see the actual posts making up this part of the conversation. If you want to see any of them, you'll be able to see the source. So there's a little icon there on the source, and you can also see the type of post. So this one is a reply, and this one is a photo repost. If you want to see any of these in the native environment, you can just go and click on the timestamp. That's what's going to take you to the source. Not the profile, not the message itself. This will open the details on it, and clicking on the profile or source will take you to the profile. If you click on the timestamp, that's going to open the post in its native environment, and this is just a reply, so it's a very short one. On the right-hand side, you will see the articles. So these are not social posts. They're going to be blogs, news, all of those more traditional media. And same, if you click on the timestamp, that's going to open the original. In this case, this is a blog. So scroll through and you'll be able to read the actual posts that make up that part of the conversation. And you'll also see that highlighted, you'll see the keywords that are being detected. In this content tab, you also have an emoji cloud. You can see the hashtags that are more popular from top to bottom. You will see this word cloud with the words that have been mentioned the most, and the top themes of discussion. Again, this widget we already saw in the first tab. Next, we have the sentiment tab. In this tab, you will see data on the sentiment detected in these mentions. So you can see how many are positive, neutral, and negative. You will also see how these are distributed across countries, across different hashtags. And this is a topic that's very positive. So most of the hashtags are also very positive, but you could scroll through. If you have a widget that has a lot of data that doesn't really fit in the visualization, it will create this little scroller thing so you can go through. And at the bottom, you have the words that are most used in the positive mentions and in the negative mentions. So for example, this is a very positive topic from what we've seen, but still we can see for the positive mentions, we have, of course, solstice and summer, but we also have things like celebrate, light, longest, happy, beautiful, hemisphere. This is what people are saying when they're talking positively about this. In the negative one, we see some mentions like hot, change, conditions, weather, heat. So there's probably some talk about climate change, and that's what's being negative about this. We could drill down and we will around these things. The next step will be demographics. So in here, you're getting demographic information. You will see first these world heat map, so you can see which countries have more mentions around this. So the US, in this example, is the biggest one. And then you'll see a split of gender that's also showing you the sentiment and a list of countries. Sprinklr does offer more demographic visualizations, but not on Quick Search. Quick Search only has these. And there are some limitations to demographics that I'll talk about in a second. Let's first finish with the tab. So I'll show you the last tab, which is audience. In audience, you'll see who are the people that are publishing on this information. So you'll see the top advocates, detractors, and towards the bottom, prolific users, and top influencers. So advocates are going to be people that are publishing high volume with positive sentiment. And detractors are going to be people that are publishing, again, high volume because they're organized from highest volume to lower volume, but the negative side of the conversation. This widget, the prolific users, this will not discriminate on sentiment. It's just based on volume. And then the top influencers one will show you who are the most, it's going to be based on influencer score. So Sprinklr calculates this influencer score based on 5 different metrics. And this is going to show you who are the most influential people that are posting on this topic. So it's not so much about volume. It's more about how much influence these users have on the conversation. So it's a bit different. All right, so going back to the demographics tab and really any tab, let's actually start with the summary tab. One thing that you could start doing is applying filters. You may have noticed this bar already that's on top of my tabs. These are the filters that I have available to filter the data for my entire dashboard. If you don't see it, make sure that it's active so you can actually hide that bar or show it again. And then you could start applying filters. For example, let's say that we want to see only mentions in English, because I did see that there are a few French language mentions. Let's say I don't want to see those. So I'm going to click this language filter and I'm going to apply English as the language, apply filters. So now, of course, my data is going to go down because I'm only looking at those mentions in English. And there were about 330,000 before. So we've lost about 10% of the mentions were in other languages. You can also apply language filters the opposite way. So you could say, I want to see everything but English. And you would just select the exclude. And now you would see every mention that's in any language other than English that matches your keyword search. This is particularly useful if, and this happens, if, for example, you're working with a brand and your brand name is a popular speech language in another language, a speech word in another language. You could be getting flooded by mentions in another language that are completely irrelevant. So you could just exclude them like that. In this filter bar, you also have other filter suggestions like filtering by country, sentiment, source, and you also have more. So there are many, many, many filters available. So you could filter by message type, media type. So I just want to see photo posts, nothing else. So you could just look at those. And now you're only going to see data on posts that are photo posts that contain a photo. So you can see that the numbers are lower. And if we go to the content tab, every single piece of content will contain photo. Let's remove all filters. Going back to the summary tab, I did want to mention some things to keep in mind when it comes to demographic filters. Demographic filters are, for example, country. That's a demographic filter. And also gender, age range, also profession, which is also in here. All of those are demographic information. Now, we will not have demographic information on every single post. That's going to depend on two things. First of all, the source has to share that information through their API. And a few channels do. For example, X is one of the sources that does share that demographic information through their API. So we will have demographic information like country for X posts. However, those posters also need to share that information. So they need to either geotag their post or specify their location on their profile properties and enable that in their profile for us to have access to that information. That's also something that's relevant when you look at the demographic tab. So in here, we're only looking at mentions that do contain that demographic information for location, for gender, etc. So if you pay attention to these, you'll see that there are 74,000 mentions that have been categorized as male and almost 54,000 categorized as female. So that gives us about 130,000 mentions that have gender identified. And if you remember back from the summary tab, this topic has detected about 300,000 mentions. So it's less than half of the mentions that have this information. That is just a reality of how that information is shared. Not everybody will share that to their profile. For example, Reddit users typically don't specify their profiles, their gender. So very difficult to get that information. And that's true for many sources, many posts. We will share the information that we have, but Sprinklr will not assume these data. So you will only have reliable data, but only part of the data, what's available. So whenever you apply a country filter or you look at a country widget, keep in mind that a big chunk of the data could be under the uncategorized, unknown portion of the data. That's always going to contain some data. Typically, a large amount of data is going to be unknown. Other filters like language, sentiment, source, media type, and many others that you'll find in here don't have these considerations attached because Sprinklr is able to detect language and to detect sentiment and to detect follower count and all of that for the sources. We can do that. It doesn't come through the API, so those filters are easier to use. So one thing that you're going to work on in Quick Search is going to be to keep your search really relevant, to pull in data that is relevant to what you're looking at and not things that are just matching your search, but they're not really what you're looking for. So how do you know how relevant your search is? A couple places that I like to look at is I do like to look at the volume trend, but right now this just tells me relevant because it's the peak is on the date where the solstice was. I also like to look at this widget because it's going to give you a split of the different kinds of topics that have been detected. All of these are sort of relevant to me, but let's say that winter solstice is not something that I want in my search and that this is not matching my search. So how do I exclude those irrelevant mentions? Well, one way to exclude irrelevant mention is by filters. Like we mentioned a couple of use cases for that, like excluding a language that's pulling in irrelevant mentions, many things like that. Another way is to refine your search. So you can modify your query from here. You can click here, and let's say that you do not want to see any winter solstice on here, only summer solstice. So what could we do? Well, we could start using Boolean operators. So Sprinklr will suggest 5 that are most popular. So let's say that we want to exclude winter. So I would do solstice and not winter. So with this, I can click search. And now you'll see that winter has disappeared from here. It has disappeared from everywhere, right? And a few of my mention number has gone down, which is to be expected. So make sure to exclude any keywords that are not a match to what you want to see. This is the exclusion operator. There's other ways to do this. So let's say we only want to see about summer solstice. We could search for summer solstice, those 2 words. One way to do that is in quotation marks, summer solstice, and click search. However, if we do this, we will see that the mention number does go down a lot. Now, there is a use case for quotation marks. For example, if you have a brand name that contains 2 words, you will want those quotation marks. But this is very restrictive. These will only match with people that said summer solstice exactly like this, with this spelling, in this order. And that's quite specific. So there's other people who could be talking about the summer solstice, but they didn't mention those exactly in this order, exactly like this. They could say, have a happy solstice this summer. I don't know, something like that. So you could also, instead of doing this, you could have, let's go back to solstice. The quotation marks are not hurting, but I'm also not doing anything, so I got rid of them. And now I'm going to do and summer. Now with this search, both words need to be present, but they don't have to be together and in that order. They could be anywhere in the same mention. And that has brought us to 192. If we want, instead of and, we could also go with the near operator, which means both terms have to appear and they have to be at a certain distance from each other. So for example, let's say 6. This means that there can only be 6 words of separation between these 2 terms. All right. And then after these searches, you could go through your dashboard, look at also the content tab is another great one, where you can see what the actual posts are, read a little bit, and make sure you're not detecting anything that's out of what you want to see. So we've talked about how to narrow down your search. Let's talk about also expanding it a little bit. Sometimes you're going to want to include more terms in your search. So for example, let's say that you would want to include some, for example, misspellings of the word solstice. People might be spelling it wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's not an easy word. So what we're going to do is we're going to add other ways that people could be referring to solstice. So I'm going to put this in parentheses and create one part of the query that is going to be solstice or solstice or solstice, or many different ways that people could be referring to this, like or shortest. And then on the right hand side, I could do the same. I'm going to put this back as an end because I don't really care about the separation. So we're going to do summer or holiday or vacation. So different ways that people could be talking about summer. Great. So now you've learned a couple different ways that you could start modifying your search if you see something that you want to include, something that you want to exclude, and how to pick up all that you need and not anything that's not relevant. Now, once your search has been executed, you feel like it's pretty relevant. I mentioned a couple ways to look at it. Another one is to apply drill downs, which you might want to do for multiple reasons. A drill down is a way to get more information on a specific data point. For example, let's talk about this peak of data. Now, I do know what this is about. It's immediately making sense to me. That will not always be the case. Or even if you know why, you might want to know more about this data point. So in any data point, this one, this one, this one, any of them in Sprinklr have drill down available. So you can just click on a data point and then apply a drill down, which is a way to break down this data point by any dimension that you like to see. There are many available, and some of them are categorized under a menu option. A few that I like to see is, for example, let's split this data point, which keep in mind this is mentions on June 21st. Let's break it down by source. So I could scroll to find it, or I could also search because there's so many. And this is going to give you a drill down on that data point. So we can see the source distribution for, keep in mind, this is filtered to June 21st, and you can see it right here. You can make this bigger if you'd like to expand. This will give you the original widget as well as the drill down that you did. And you can add more drill downs here. So let's do another one on language. So we can see a large number of mentions are in English. I also like to do the word cloud. You can see that it's in my recents. You can just search for it. This lets me see if there's any specific words that call out to me. For example, Stonehenge, that's a cool word. And you can drill down into a drill down. So I could go to the Stonehenge and apply, I don't know, a source filter here. This is filtered to both June 21st and mentions that include the word Stonehenge. So getting pretty deep there. Let me remove this one, delete this one. The last one that I typically always like to bring up is the conversation stream. Back to the same data point, conversation stream. And conversation stream will show me the actual posts or mentions. So we can see each of them in this list. Drill downs are sort of momentary things. You can add them to a dashboard, but that's more for the more advanced listening dashboard. So for now, I'm just going to close it and be done with it, and it's gone forever. I like to apply drill downs on any data point that calls out to me. And also, this is a pretty good place where we can look at a side of the conversation with a word cloud, conversation stream, etc. Now, once you've researched a little bit your dashboard, you might be ready to be done with it, and then you can happily close it and forget it forever. Or there's a couple ways for you to preserve it, even though this is a quick search thing for a touch and go kind of play with Sprinklr insights. So first thing that you might want to do is going to be exporting. So if you want to export this, create a hard copy on Excel or PDF or something like that, you will find the option in the More Actions menu, this three-dot menu. So just select Export and configure if you'd want to have a PDF, Excel, if you want all 5 tabs or just maybe the summary and the content one. And then you're going to export this. I prefer one single PDF with all tabs. And it's going to take a few minutes to process, and then you'll be notified when you're ready to download. You can also save this quick search query. So just click this Save Query option. You have to give it a name. And if there's any filters applied or anything like that, those will be appearing in here. You could also do it at this point. And hit Create. So now whenever you open Quick Search, it will be in this list of your saved queries. I have more than 6, so it wasn't immediately visible. The last way to sort of preserve this quick search that you did is, instead of save query, add topic query. So with this, you would create a topic with your query. Now, topics are going to be covered in a separate video, but this would be a way to have a starting point on your topic. So we would call this topic sources. You have to add it to an existing topic group in the list. And submit. This will save the topic in a non-fetching state, and you will have to go make some changes to it and then enable it to fetching in topics. More on that on the topics video. So I hope that this has been helpful for you to understand what quick search is. We've seen how it can let you quickly get insights by just executing any search, applying some Boolean operators, applying filters, refining your search, and even exporting these as a hard copy. Remember, this is only an exploration tool, and there is much more to learn about Sprinklr insights on the topics, listening dashboards, and other lessons that we have on the topic.